Welcome to HortTube. My name is Jim Putnam. In this video, we've pulled out an azalea and we're going to put in an osmanthus that's actually we've had for about 2 years. We knew it was going to go in this space, but we just hadn't gotten around to it. And sometimes that happens. Sometimes you end up with a plant that stays in a pot way longer than it should have, and then you probably have to do some surgery on it. So we'll get to that in a minute when we pull it out and see how root bound it actually is. This space here in the front garden, we're going to eventually put a front porch on the house over here, but it doesn't extend down quite this far. So this osmanthus will just end up just to the right of this window. There's one other old-fashioned azalea here that will probably make its way out of the ground as well at some point. This was the last spot that had a little ivy in it too, so I had to dig out the azalea, and I'm working on getting out some of this, the remaining ivy in the landscape as well. So I started by removing this azalea. And as you can see in the video, I just take the my trenching shovel and I just cut straight down in a circle going around the plant. And I just do that, I'll do that a couple times. I'll go all the way around the plant and, I'll circle it a couple times before I start pulling back on it. The last thing I want to do is damage my shovel. I've had the shovel a long time. In fact, it was probably about 3 inches longer than it is. But I go around it twice and I cut, and then I start the process of just pulling back just a bit. Okay, so I feel if it's loosened. And I just do that, and I'll do that for a couple trips around the plant. So I cut a couple trips and then I pull back a couple trips, and then I can start to get a feel for which side of the plant is the most disconnected from the soil. You'll figure that out pretty quick. One side you'll be able to do that, and the other side you might just barely be able to come back because you haven't cut enough roots on it yet. Once you've established the side that you can pull up, you can just start to pull the plant up and then cut the rest of those remaining roots. We're giving this azalea away, just putting it out here by the side of the road, putting it on Facebook Marketplace. Somebody will come along and grab it, so I wanted to get enough roots from the plant. Azaleas are extremely shallow rooted, so it's one of those things. I don't need a deep root ball, but I need a slightly wider root ball. But it actually came out easily. It's probably been in the ground for decades in this space. It's created a little bit of a hole, as you would expect when you remove something. So I'm going to take some pine bark soil conditioner and compost blend that I have, and I'm just going to mix that in to this soil, just kind of refreshing it. Obviously, there's some additional roots over here as well, but I'll just mix this all in with some of this existing soil. That'll give me a good place to plant my new plant. So let's talk about the osmanthus. One additional note, if it was a much larger plant, maybe this azalea here, this one was this tall and this one's this tall, you can come out and cut around the roots several weeks in advance and just kind of prepare to move the plant. So just do the cutting thing, where I went around it twice and just cut the roots, and then just leave it in place, and it'll start to regenerate roots back in toward the middle, and it'll be almost like having grown it in a container in the ground, and then you can move it later. I've showed that in how to remove a camellia shrub video a long time ago that I'll link down below this video. The beds up against the house are in this cinder block little wall here. When I get the rest of these azaleas out, I'm going to remove that wall. At the same time, I may repurpose these half cinder blocks at that time for some other purpose, or give them away or whatever. But they're perfectly fine. They're just kind of unnecessary now that I've turned the entire front yard into a bed instead of just having the bed up here. Okay, so this is an osmanthus, and it's not going to be the prettiest thing you've ever seen in this container today, because again, we've had it for close to 2 years. This video has been on the list for a long time, and it just, for whatever reason, here we are today, finally putting it in the ground. So the plant has suffered somewhat by being in the container this long, not being refertilized. But this is an osmanthus fragrans called Fudingzhu, or Fudingzhu. We thought it was Fudingzhu. Somebody else had told me it was Fudingzhu. I think 2 other people had said Fudingzhu. And then when we were down with Ted Stevens, this is one of his best-selling plants on Nurseries Caroliniana. website. If you want to find one to order, he may have some availability on this one. But I had actually got this one from Jason Stevens a long time ago from Superior Plants. You've seen a video with him. This is one of the coolest Osmanthus fragrans, because most of the time when I talk about Osmanthus fragrans, I say you smell them before you see them. But that's not the case with this one. This one has the showiest clusters of flowers. And I mean, really large flower clusters for an Osmanthus. And so you can actually see this one at the same time that you're smelling it. I've really wanted this plant in the ground for a while, and I think this makes three different Osmanthus fragrans. No, three different Osmanthus that we have. We have an orange flowering one, the regular Osmanthus fragrans, and now Fudingzhu will go in to this spot, and it will recover very quickly from any abuse that we've given it. We just finally need to get it in the ground. I'm assuming this is very root bound, so let's pull it out of the container and see. Okay, one thing I have just noticed is that I can actually see inside this container is actually painted with copper at some point. That some of the nurseries, there are some nurseries that actually paint the inside of their containers with copper. And what that does is when the roots get out to the edge of the container, it actually burns them, and the root has no choice but to go the other direction. So I've pulled this plant that's been in this container for over 2 years out, and it's really not that root bound at all. I was thinking I had a completely root bound plant. I had never pulled it out to see that coloration in the container. So I pulled this is a Viburnum obavatum, equally as abused as the Osmanthus, and I'm going to pull it out of the container and show you how bad this can be without the copper. This is just solid roots at this point. That's what I expected from this Osmanthus right now. I'm going to get this Viburnum in the ground soon, and I've also got a Chinese maple, and maples are notorious for being root bound in a container, and I can even see it down here at the bottom. It's just solid roots. There you go. This maple's going to go in the ground soon, but you can see that's what I expect after a plant's been in the pot for too long. This maple's going to be in a video upcoming. You guys will see. I'm going to show you how I would do surgery on this Viburnum real quick to get this seriously root-bound plant. I'm going to set the Osmanthus over to the side because it doesn't need this surgery. I'm going to set them up here on this ledge, and I will take a root-bound plant like this. I actually will just saw the bottom completely off. And so, you see that right there? Already, all those wrapping roots are no longer wrapping. And so, all of the ones that I've now cut off the side, you can now see, they're free to go out, okay, in the ground. Then I'll take my saw. This is a pruning saw. And I'll run into the, maybe 4 or 5 times, I'll run it in here. This seems abusive, seems mean, but this plant's in serious danger of these roots wrapping over one another and killing each other in time. And this plant just either sitting here and doing nothing or really struggling in the future. So I've cut it pretty deep 5 times there, and I'm gonna break it up even more with my hands. You see how I'm really doing surgery on this thing. Really doing surgery on this thing. And I'm really busting this thing up. These are the kind of root systems that really, if you don't do this, the plant's really gonna suffer in the future. Now, based on the fact that I just did that much damage to these roots, which I know looks terrible, I really need to reduce the size of this plant to compensate for the damage that I just did. So this is a plant that I just hold together and give it about a 4 or 5 inch haircut. I'm filming this almost at the beginning of November, end of October, so the plant's really not growing. So this wouldn't be as necessary right now, but certainly in the spring, early summer, mid-summer, you'd need to reduce the size of this plant some in order to compensate for that damage that I just did. But you can see now, the roots that are remaining that I didn't cut off are all free to now spread evenly out into the hole and not choke one another in the future. Back to the Fudingzhu. Again, the roots are really just kind of perfect on it. I really thought I was shooting a video of this plant being in the roots being in rough shape, but that copper treated container was kind of a nice find. There are lots of nurseries out there that actually, not lots, but some nurseries that do that. But it does do a pretty good job of, look how long it extended the time that plant can stay in that container. So again, I'm breaking it up a little bit. It has still been in there for a long time. And then, of course, it's not hard to dig when you've already had a plant here. We really haven't mulched this space back here like we have everything else. So but this soil's not bad because it had been a bed for so long. These azalea leaves had dropped in here for ever and ever, and they've done a pretty good job of actually improving its own space over these years. Every one of these azaleas is a different color going along here. I couldn't remember which color that one was when I went to post it on Facebook Marketplace. But again, just like anything else, I'm leaving it up just a bit. I use my shovel across the side of the hole like this. And if the root ball is above my shovel when I lay it across the two sides, then it's elevated about where I want it. Then I'll tuck the rest of this soil mixture back around it, and I'll make up the difference. I'm going to be short an inch or two of soil, and I'm just going to make up the difference with a little bit of hardwood mulch. This has actually been my dumping ground for some grass clippings for a little while now. But there you go. This is going to get big like this. I'm going to eventually have to cut this Edgeworthia back just a bit, but this will fill this entire space back in the back. It's got a couple flowers on it right now, but it's in such bad shape that it had more on it a few weeks ago. These will flower any month that has an R in it. So they can start as early as September and then go right through the spring months, March and April, before it backs off in the summertime. And then it's just beautiful green leaves on it 12 months out of the year, flowers at a time when not many other things are flowering. Incredible fragrance on this plant. And again, this one has the showiest flowers of any Osmanthus I've ever seen. So there you go. We removed an azalea, an old azalea. Got one more back here that's got to go, and some ivy that's underneath it that needs to go. Got in a plant that we had honestly abused for the last 2 years, and showed you how I would do surgery on one if it was very, very root bound coming out of the container. So thanks for following along with the channel, and we'll see you soon.